Hello. In the next 10 minutes, I'm going to share with you, I'm going to tell you 3 stories gained from leading highly creative teams and projects at the BBC over the last, believe it or not, I was there for 20 years. I am old. I'm going to share with you some highs. You know, I need to do that because otherwise I'm going to feel bad up here. But I'm also going to be brave and share some lows with you today. And I'm hoping that the stories I tell center around 3 very simple things, 3 what I call my 3 Ps, 3 areas of focus, will help you when you're tackling really difficult challenges and you need time for change. You need to make change happen. They'll help you to make those ideas into a reality. They'll give you a new way of facing those challenges. And also, I hope they'll be fun ways and give you some exciting and innovative ideas at the end of it. That's my goal. So my first story I'm going to share with you is all about patterns. Now, we all have patterns. I mean, that's obvious, isn't it? That's how we function. Our brains are pattern recognition systems. So we use them from a very young age to understand the world around us. The challenge for me, working at the BBC and working with the top of the organisation, is that the higher up you go, the more patterns you have. And actually, the new comes from being able to break those patterns. It comes from you being able to look at things in a different way. Einstein said that if without being able to change our patterns of thinking, how can we solve the problems that we've created with today's patterns of thinking? That's the challenge. And that's the challenge we have in every profession we work in and whatever you are in the world. Now, this is the good story, and the bad one's coming next. Okay, the good story was I got my big break into program development when they asked me to help them with animal programs, so wildlife programs at the BBC, and they had a kind of slump, so program figures were falling. And I don't know if you know, but obviously for the BBC that's really important. Animal programs are one of our kind of unique selling points, the things that we pride ourselves on. So I was like, yeah, okay, let's do this. Now, I love data. Who doesn't love data? Okay. I love data because it opens doors that other people don't normally walk through. And I did this survey, and I was laughed at the BBC when I did this. I ran a survey, and I asked people, what are your favorite animals? And my colleagues at the BBC were like, silly. But I discovered something. I discovered that women love underwater animals. Come on, girls. You love a dolphin, don't you? Yeah? Starfish? Yeah? Seahorses, come on. I'm going to hit the right one at some point. Okay. Now, that key point led us to create Blue Planet. Do you know, I don't know if you know Blue Planet, but it was, for the BBC, it was great because it was the biggest selling, and actually I think it's only just been knocked off the charts, top selling show or series the BBC made. So that was great, you know, managed to do that. So the reason that worked was because normally wildlife programs appeal to men. So by bringing in the women, we suddenly got a massive audience. So it broke conventions on lots of different ways. It broke conventions in the way that actually we had music written for women, so that you didn't hear the kind of noises of the animals. We got so many complaints about that, so many complaints. And I'll talk about that a little bit more later. So it did that, and also the whole marketing was geared to women. It had, the storylines were more anthropomorphic. So Blue Planet did well. And what I'd say is that was my good story, so there's a bad one coming next. But in terms of kind of my favorite definition of creativity is by Akoff and Vergara. And they say it's the ability to modify self-imposed constraints. It's your ability to break patterns. So when you're looking at anything, any project you're working on, any challenge you have, think to yourself, what do I always do? And then think to yourself, okay, look, you can even list them and think, what else could I do? What other door could you open that no one else has been through? So I'm now going to move on to my second story, which I told you is my bad one. So I want you to be kind and not laugh too much. Okay, so this is about people. You've noticed why they're 3 Ps, aren't you? Because the first one was about patterns, and this one's about people. So we know the power of networks. It's been well documented. We know that the Impressionist movement was in part thanks to the kind of the connections between different artists at that time. We know that Newton's scientific discoveries were helped by discussions with 25 other eminent scientists of the time. We even know that there's been a study that's been made that shows that the top acclaimed 20th century musicals on Broadway, like West Side Story, came from the interconnections between different social clusters at the time. So networks are important. What we also know is that actually it's the size of the network. Apparently we can only keep in our heads 50 ideas at a time of different people. So who is in your 50? That's one question. We know also it's linked to diversity. How diverse is your group? Or are they all like you? And the other area is the quality. So those 3 areas. Now, in terms of patterns, in terms of people, I'm forgetting it now because I'm worried about telling you this story. That's the truth. I'm like, oh, can I tell them this? Can I do this at TED? Can I really do this? Okay, deep breath, Linda. I'm going to tell you. So, millennium. I was riding the crest of the wave of Blue Planet. There I was. You know, I was very young, and I thought, this is great. And I got asked to increase audiences to Top Gear. Do you guys know Top Gear? Right, okay. Now, so I was in a pattern. I'm going to show you something now that's going to shock you, because I've tried to delete it from every YouTube site I can go to. So I was in a pattern, and I thought, okay, here we go. Male-skewed program, what do? I attract women. Yeah, kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Oh, dear. Shall we have a look at what it was like?
In tonight's Top Gear.
Okay. Now I can relax. Okay, so audiences fell to under 3 million, which was very bad. Jeremy Clarkson left for the first time. And one guy got done for drink driving. And that had nothing to do with me. But I was like, oh my goodness, I mean, how bad is that? You know, you can't really get worse than that. So I licked my wounds, and I thought, right, BBC being the BBC, they didn't sack me. Gave me another chance. And I actually decided, right, I'm going to listen. I'm going to really listen now. And what I did was I took 20 producers and myself, and I went to spend a night, not myself with lots of men. I mean, like, that sounds wrong, doesn't it? I mean, I spent, it was before I got married, though. Anyway, that's an aside. But anyway, so we all went out, and we spent a night with a guy and his friends, and we went out, and we came back about a week later, and there were some amazing stories. Now, remember, this is the millennium, so it's not our time now. And guys came back with stories like this, that they would do things like dare themselves to close their eyes for as long as possible on motorways. They did. Or turn their lights off in the dark when they're driving on country roads. Come on, there's always one that goes, I do that. Now, it was the millennium, and that's why I said that, because actually life was different to the way it is now. These guys were a little bit bored. You know, they wanted a thrill, didn't they? So it led to one of our biggest insights and a huge range of very successful programs for men, including the relaunch of Top Gear, through one insight, which was, how can we give men a roller coaster ride on TV? That was the insight from that. So, you know, I learned a very tough lesson that time. I mean, I did redeem myself, to be fair. It did work out in the end, but I learned that I really need to share my ideas with people. Talk to people, listen. So I'd say to you, who is in your network? Who is in your network? How can they help to champion your ideas as well as challenge them? and help you develop them and make them successful. Right, so that's my second story. So that was the good and the bad. This one's the important. Okay, this one's around purpose. So my final story centers on purpose. Now, it's very important for many reasons, but I'm going to share with you in a second how the BBC pulled off its biggest ever event at the same time as moving 3,500 staff to Salford. So that's in the north. So we're in London. A lot of the news and sports people were in London, and they were being asked to move to Salford. I don't know if any of you know, but that wasn't going down well in the BBC or outside of the BBC. So it was a very tough call. But I'll explain that in a second. So let's talk a little bit about purpose. Why is it so important? The fact is, when you guys walk out of here and come up with an idea and want to make it into reality, if it truly is different, people are going to disagree with you. They're going to stop you. They're going to say, it doesn't fit with our world, it's not right, it doesn't fit with our patterns. So it requires determination and it requires tenacity. And I believe, and I've seen it working with people now for a long time, that if you believe in that idea, if it has purpose and meaning to you, then you know what that is, and you can really sort of say what that is, and you can share it, other people will believe in it too, and they'll make it happen. And the way we now know that the brain operates to support this, and I'll explain just very briefly, because I'm not a neuroscientist. Say that straight away, I'm not, but I do love anything to do with the brain. And it works by the brain has three parts working at the same time. To switch on the ideas which actually come behind your right temporal lobe from here, to switch on this bit, requires your salience network, which is here, to go to close, to light up when something is emotional and resonates with you. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is this bit needs to close down. The prefrontal cortex is to quieten down. So it needs to be, the idea needs to be simple, firstly, and secondly, it needs to be relevant or emotional for that to work. So it needs to be simple and emotional. And the best example I can show of this, and show you in a second, was the BBC's coverage of the Digital Olympics in 2012. So as I said, they were doing two things. They were doing the 2012 Olympics and moving people. And they came up with an idea which was simple. So the idea was, we are going to record every sport from every location every day. That's a lot. That's a lot for the Olympics. And the relevance bit was, you can watch it, we're going to make sure that our audience can watch it on whatever piece of glass they choose. And the reason that was so special and had such meaning, those two things, in terms of being very simple idea, we knew we had to record everything. We knew that as staff and producers. And it was on every piece of glass. It was that wonderful moment where you had a kind of aligning of the stars. You had a massive event with lots of content, and we all had our smartphones and more mobile devices. So it was a why now. So I'd say to you, whatever your idea is that you want to have happen and turn into reality, why you? Why should you be doing this, and why now? I'm going to show the team that's just going to talk through what that was like for them doing the Olympics. Short clip.
This summer, the greatest show on earth arrived in London.
To every athlete waiting, ready, prepared to take part in these games, welcome to London.
But to bring the greatest show to the whole of Great Britain, we knew we needed one of the greatest broadcasting ideas of all time.
Okay, no problem, we're standing by now.
We decided to show every session of every sport, every day.
We've got 14 hours a day here on BBC Three, 16 hours over on BBC One.
And to make it available on television, radio, computers, mobile, tablets, and the latest connected TVs.
We did it so the entire nation would never have to miss a moment.
Okay, we cut it there because I haven't got rights to show you all the stuff that's after that. I'm only joking. It's just to save time. Okay, so what happened after that was we all gave up weekends. We travelled up and down between London and Salford because we wanted to do it. There was that motivation because it felt like it had real purpose and it was very, very, very clear. So my last point is I hope that when you're faced with turning your ideas into reality and you want to make them happen, that you use and are successful using my 3 Ps. So do remember patterns, people, and purpose. Thank you very much.